All right, well, let's get into it. Today, we are covering leadership that lasts, a framework for building gyms that win year after year. And so it's kind of interesting because we have two different types of franchisees on here today, right? We've got Clint, who has owned his clubs for 15 years or more. Is that correct, Clint?
Yeah, Huntersville, 16 and a half years. Denver, June will be 8 years since we built it.
Yeah, so quite a while versus Dan. I think you're coming up on your 1 year anniversary in April or May.
March 12th.
Well, right. So kind of two different ends of the spectrum here. And so I'm excited to see how this stuff lands with the two of you, knowing that you guys are in two completely different places in your ownership life cycle. And so, hi, I'm Chad. I know both of you know me, so I'm not going to go through all my credentials when there's more people on here that don't know me. Sometimes I do that. But I've been around the brand for a long time, worked for Anytime Fitness for 18 years, and so blessed to be here chatting with you guys today. All right. So, Clint, in your opinion, what separates average gyms from elite gyms?
Us, the
owner.
people inside of the gym, the owners.
Yeah, the people, right?
People.
And so one of the things that we're going to discover here today is that it's not about separating yourself from average versus elite. Isn't about having intensity in stretches, right? Like we don't get all fired up about something, come have a meeting, bring all this intensity and this energy, and then it trickle off, right? We really want to have a system that sustains performance month after month and year after year. And that's what we're going to uncover today, is how to do that. One of the things that I'm sure we have all experienced, I've worked with leaders like this, I've been a leader like this, which is we come in and we lead with energy. And we get really super motivational. We have, we bring this aura with us. And then sometimes it works temporarily, but then sometimes it kind of fades out. And when we rely on intensity, lasting leadership becomes very challenging. We really want to rely on a structure, and we want to understand that what we say isn't necessarily what we get. We get what we tolerate. And we want to really drive standards into our clubs, and we want to live up to those standards, and we want to encourage and inspire our teammates to lead up to those standards as well. And whether you like him or not, which I don't, by the way, but I'm going to reference Tom Brady here, right? One of the things that Tom Brady did really well in his career is he set the standard. If you were not able to meet the standards that he set, then get out, right? He doesn't want anything to do with you if you can't live up to the standards. And I think that's one of the things I'm going to really focus on today, is defining what those standards are and how to live up to them. So I came up with some questions that keep leaders up at night, and they're right here on the screen, right? Why do strong leaders burn out? Why does my team drift? Why do standards erode? And we're going to really work towards figuring those things out today. But, Dan, if I remember right, you come from the military, right? And so, although you're new to the Anytime Fitness world, you're not new to leadership, and you're not new to working with people. In your experience over the years, what do you see as some of the things that cause leaders to burn out and their teams to drift?
It's training and holding to standards. What are you trained on? You're only gonna fall to the training that you have, and that because when stuff hits the fan, you're gonna fall back to how you were trained, and so. And then it's just your leadership always on, like Tom Brady, holding the standard, and it's tiring to always repeat yourself, but people need it 6+ times before you'll get it. And then 60, 30-day, 90 reviews and on basically the review process. So where are you? Where are you at? So you beginning of the week, end of the week meetings. Where are you at? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? So that's
bringing that consistency, right? And so what you're describing is the opposite of leading with intensity. You're leading with a system. You're saying, hey, I'm not just going to come in and pour my energy into something. I'm going to systematically approach it. One of the other things that happens and why leadership kind of erodes over time and that we keep ourselves up at night is when performance peaks temporarily and then slowly slides, we don't grab a hold of that immediately, right? And we don't realize that the reason it's sliding is that one, we're allowing it to, and secondly, our team isn't meeting the standards that we know drive success, right? One of the quotes that I had written down in my notes here is small compromises compound daily until excellence becomes memory and standards are eroded. And so I think one of the things I've seen this in my career, we've all seen it, is when we allow slippage in our standards, that's when everything starts to get more complicated, right? And then to get those standards back up to place becomes really challenging. And so with only two of you on here, it's actually easier for me, but sorry, I have to keep having to ask you guys the questions. Clint, what is a behavior in your gym right now that you're allowing to take place, but you know it doesn't meet your standard of excellence?
I guess one of the things that bothers me is people not being on time, and they're good at their job, but they're consistently late, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I think you'll agree with is the reason they keep being late is that you would tolerate it and you allow it to happen. The question is, what if you didn't? What impact would that have on other areas of the business?
I guess I just haven't been able to figure out how to not tolerate it without firing them, because they're so good at personal training, sales, and other things that I'm like, how can I punish them in a way that they'll stop being late and take it more serious without firing them?
Yeah, and I don't think you have to punish them, right? I think it comes into, and this is where we're going with this conversation, is inspiring them to want to hold the line on standards, right? Like it shouldn't be, why do I have to hound you about being late? It should be, they should feel bad for being late because they let you down, they let the rest of the team down, and they didn't live up to the excellence that we have defined that we are going to be as a team. And in order to change that behavior, we have a term called content pattern relationship that we use here at Mastermind. And essentially, you don't need to punish them. You need to address it with them. And then you need to get them to commit to saying, yes, I understand it's unacceptable for me to not be on time, and I'm going to stop doing that. And then when they're late, you just have to let them know you noticed it, right? It goes back to what I was saying earlier about this right here is when you tolerate that particular behavior, they think they can get by with it, right? Just like my kids, there's certain things that they do that I don't want them to do, but they keep doing it because I'm allowing them to do it. Does that make sense, Clint?
Yeah.
So today's roadmap, we're going to talk about installing really 6 things, right? So 1 is direction and vision. 2 is understanding the psychology of change. 3 is standards of excellence. 4 is 3 pillars of accountability. 5 is culture by design. And 6 is the leadership operating system. And so these are the 6 things that I'm going to cover over the next 50 minutes. And I'm excited to bring Dan and Clint on this journey with me. I'm so glad you guys showed up today. It would be awfully lonely here presenting this to all these note takers.
How do they do that, by the way? How do they do that AI note taking stuff?
So what you do with it is if you have an AI note taker, for example, you see a lot of Fathoms in here. Otter AI is a popular one. There's tons of note takers out there. You sign up for one, you attach it to your email, and then anytime that you are emailed an event and you accept the invite to that event, your note taker will automatically join the event. It knows, like, it recognizes that your email was invited to a Google Meet, and so it automatically will join in. We use Fathom, Otter's on here. I can't really tell what all services that all these people are using, but
That's just in my app store, Fathom.
Yep. No, I go to the internet and just go to Fathom Note Taker. And it does look like we do have a couple other people that have joined. Garrett Schultz is with us, Hannah Proctor, Jake Debney. Welcome. I didn't see you guys come in. So, but as I was scrolling down through here, I saw your name. So now I got some more people to call on. All right, here we go. So when we look at leadership that lasts, the first part is having clear direction and vision for your club. And so think about it like this. Let's look at the New York Jets versus the New England Patriots, for example, right? The New York Jets, and they say we have direction and we have vision, and they start their season saying we're going to win the Super Bowl, just like every team does. But what changes throughout the course of the season is that they don't have leadership that can reinforce that direction and vision through these other 5 factors. However, it doesn't negate the fact that putting a direction and vision together is extremely important for your team. They need to know where you're going as an owner, what their career path looks like for them, and what your goals are as a business. And so I'm going to give a very simple example. So at your club, if there's no roadmap for where we are going financially, what our revenue targets are, what the career paths are, how they can make this a career, then it becomes really difficult to get them to treat it as if it were a career, not a hobby. And so we want to be really great vision and direction casters. We want to be able to give our team something that they can hold on to and say, hey, like, we're not just showing up to work every day. We're part of something bigger. How do we do that? One of the things that we know is without vision, standards feel arbitrary. If your team doesn't know where they're going, accountability feels like pressure. Without vision, standards are arbitrary. And so what ends up happening in a lot of clubs is because we don't have clear vision and clear direction, and we haven't given people something to be inspired about. We haven't said, hey, this is where we're going as a business, and this is where we're going as a club, and these are our goals, whether it be as simple as we want to make this one club platinum, and here's how we're going to do it, and here's what your role is going to be in it, up to, I own one club today and I want to own 15 5 years from now, and here's my vision for that, and here's the role you can play in it. It can be anything, right? They just need to have that vision, because when we don't and we begin to provide accountability, it feels a lot like pressure, not purpose. And we want them to be bought into where you are going as a business so that they have a purpose. And then we can drive accountability down to that purpose. A great example, Dan, is in the military, right? The what we are preparing for is the event that we have to go to war, right? Like that's what a lot of military units are focused on. And because they're focused on that vision and that mission, and this is what we're going to do, when accountability needs to come into people that are struggling, it feels like, hey, you're inhibiting us from being able to fulfill the mission, versus if there's no mission and we're just training all the time, we're having all these conversations, and it's like, well, why are you holding me accountable? What are we preparing for? Right? There's nothing that we're moving towards. And that's the difference between accountability to purpose and accountability just for accountability's sake. There's 3 questions that you should be able to answer as an owner at all times, right? And number 1 is, where are we going? We need to be able to define the destination clearly enough that every team member can see it. One of the things that I've done other presentations on for all of you, and I can share those with you if you'd like, but it's how to cast a long-term vision and then bring that down into short-term. It's really difficult for an entry-level employee to stay attached to like a 5-year vision. And so we want to be able to cast that 5-year vision and direction. We want to be able to talk about those things consistently, but we also want to be able to say, here's the first step. And so over the next 6 months, this is what we're going to do. And then the next 6 months, this is what we're going to do. And we need to chunk it down. The second thing is, why does it matter? And not why does it just matter to you, but why does it matter to the team, right? We need to be able to connect the mission to something bigger than revenue targets. So for example, revenue targets can be like your internal metric for, when we hit this number, I'm going to do this thing. But that's not what's going to inspire your team. They need to understand the why behind it and why it matters. And that can be, it matters because it's going to give them a career path. It matters because we're going to be able to help more people. It matters because we're going to be able to impact the community. You can come up with all kinds of different reasons why it matters, but you need to have one. And it needs to resonate with your team. And then the third one is who we must become. And so I'll give you guys some insight into our company. And so I started here in the fall of 2023. And in order for us to get to the places that we have to go, so we know where we're going, we know why it matters, and we know who we must become. But when I first started here, we knew where we were going. We've really refined why it matters, but who we must become is an evolving operation. The way we had to change in 2024 was different than the way we had to change in 2025, and it's different than the way we have to change in 2026. Because as we evolve as people and we evolve as a company and we evolve as a leadership system and we add more people, who we must become changes. And we all need to be able to answer these questions at all times, right? Growth demands transformation, not just the team, but from you as the leader first. The person that leads one club versus the person that leads 20 is a different person. And we have to be able to evolve along the way, and your team must be able to do the same. All right. This is a core feature. I know I've been talking about vision and direction and accountability, and I'm going to get more into standards here in a minute. But if you come out of the woodwork and you say, let's say you guys come off this meeting and you're super inspired and you're leading with energy, right? We're leading with energy, but you don't ever, and you establish a direction, you establish a vision, you answer these 3 questions, you do a really great job of getting the team like, hell yeah, dude, let's go. But then it doesn't sustain. The way you get it to sustain is through speaking it weekly, having it be a part of your meeting rhythms, right? We're not talking about where we're going, who we're becoming, what we're doing. It's not just a, quarterly thing or a one-time announcement. We drive it in all the time. And when we do that, it helps us resonate the standards of excellence that we want to portray. So for example, if I'm going to call on somebody else here, Hannah Proctor, are you out there?
I am. I'm with Keepbook actually though, so I'm not an owner.
All right. Well, hi, Hannah. That's okay. That's even better because you're a team member of a company, correct?
Yes.
Have you ever worked for a company that casts their vision really well? They weave it into their weekly meetings, everybody on the team is in alignment on where we're going, who we need to become, why it matters, versus working for a company that doesn't do those things. Have you worked for both types of companies before?
I would say I have, yeah.
Can you tell me a difference in the way it feels when you're coming into work every day, when you're working for a company that does a really great job at making sure everybody knows where we're going, why it matters, and who we must become, versus one that doesn't?
Yeah, so honestly, I would say that Keepbook does a phenomenal job at this. And my previous position, it kind of felt like we were just kind of showing up every day and we didn't have as much direction, which kind of, I don't know, it just left everybody in a lot of different places and not on the same page. And it was a lot harder to meet goals. And with Keepbooked, we come in and we have our weekly meetings. We all have a goal in mind and we're all working towards the same thing. So it's definitely a change of pace and you can definitely tell the difference.
I love it. Right there it is, right from the ground up here on the call. And so the thing about it is, if your sales team doesn't see the bigger mission, they won't embrace the structure required to win. If I don't understand where we're going, why it matters, and who I must become to help get on this mission, then it becomes very difficult for me to embrace the structure and the accountability and the things required to win, i.e., as Clint said, being the simplicity of being on time, right? It becomes really difficult for me to buy into those things because I don't understand why they matter, right? If your coach don't understand the impact you're creating, they won't push through the discomfort. And so you guys got to ask yourselves, does my team understand the vision? Do I speak it weekly? Or is it just remembered quarterly? Direction isn't announced once, it's reinforced consistently. And I know this sounds very like duh, Chad, but it matters. And if you're struggling with people meeting the standards and meeting excellence and getting leadership that lasts, I really encourage you to go back and reevaluate these three things with your team and get them all in alignment on a very consistent basis. All right, where does that take us? The next step is the psychology of lasting change. So behavior change is fragile, identity change is durable. And so what I mean by that is we want to focus on identity over behavior. We want to be able to run a business that identifies with excellence, that demands excellence, that says, listen, we are excellent. And if you don't want to be excellent, then go find another job, period. Because that's what we're doing here. That's an identity. Excellence is an identity. Being the best at something is an identity versus if we're managing behavior and we're always doing behavior change, we're trying to help someone become the identity. And I think that there's a part of that that needs to exist. But in essence, what we really want to do is say, this is who we identify as a team. This is who I identify as a leader. And my identity is non-compromisable. And if you cannot live up to and mirror that identity, then this isn't going to work. And we start that through our hiring process, through our performance management process. Some people are quicker to adapt than others. I can give examples of many, many people I worked with over the years that I'm so glad I didn't give up on them because they were just slower to come into their identity and to get on track with everything that we were doing. And we had to manage their behavior over time, which is a very fragile process, right? Like Clint was saying, like, how do I manage someone's behavior to be on time without firing them or making them want to quit? And that's why behavior change is fragile. Identity change becomes durable. We want to create that identity for people, and it's okay if it takes some longer than others to get there. So some examples of this, right, is behavior based is we need to improve sales. And so that's a behavior that we are trying to improve, right? It's temporary, it's fragile, maybe it fades under pressure. We've all said it. I've said it. I've said it in the last 6 months, right? Like we need to improve sales. But when we lead from identity, we're able to say things like, we are a coaching first, excellence driven organization. That's who we are, period. And then we become it, we live it, we breathe it. The behaviors that we do identify and help us become that statement, right? It's durable, it's self reinforcing, it shapes every decision that we do. And so the big concept here is identity drives behavior versus behavior is fragile, right? Managing behavior is fragile. I'd rather manage the identity. I want the people that work on my team to identify that they are the best. And I truly believe that if you come in and you were to interview everybody on my staff here at Mastermind, we wake up in the morning and we piss excellence, like period dot, right? Ricky Bobby all the way, right? Sorry if you guys don't all get that reference, but I truly believe that they identify with excellence, and it's because that's the way we run our organization every single day. And it's the identity that we are creating for them and ourselves. And it's not easy to do, but I challenge you guys to really, really focus on the identity that you have as a leader, the identity and the vision that you cast, and the direction. Now, in order to go from where you are to that, there's a couple of things that you guys need to understand, right? One of which is the 6 human needs that drive your team. Does anybody on this call have any experience with managing people through understanding human needs psychology? Oh, that was a note taker. That's okay if you don't, right? The idea here is that these 6 human needs drive everyone. If you have never studied Tony Robbins, The 6 Human Needs, I would encourage you to go listen to a podcast. It's all over YouTube. He has several books on it, but they're pretty long. But you can get a good enough understanding of the 6 human needs from watching a couple hours of his stuff. But essentially the concept is that these 6 human needs drive every individual, and every individual has 2 primary needs that must be met in order for them to change their behavior, change their identity, and drive themselves forward for you. Number 1 is certainty, the need for stability, security, and predictability. Number 2 is variety, the need for change, challenge, and new stimulation. Number 3 is significance, the need to feel important, special, and recognized. Number 4 is connection, the need for belonging, closeness, and community. Number 5 is growth, the need for progress, development, and expansion. And then number 6 is contribution, the need to give back and make a meaningful impact. And so by understanding that these 6 things exist in everyone, you have to work to identify which 2 of these drive your team members the most. And they're not all going to be the same. And then once you understand what needs must be met for them in order for them to perform at the highest level, then you can begin to nurture those needs, right? So if someone has connection and certainty and connection are their 2 biggest human needs, then we can study how to meet those 2 needs for them so that they are able to perform for us. Here's a little bit of an example, right? Your top salesperson in your clubs, their 2 most significant needs are probably significance and growth. Those 2 particular human needs are what drives their daily behavior. Your best coach is probably contribution and connection. And the way you lead those people and manage them is different But what is always the same is the message. Where are we going? Why does it matter? Who must we become? That never changes. But the way you get it to resonate with them is different based on the needs that they have. And so studying human need psychology and being able to inspire them and help them identify with your mission and how they're going to contribute through these needs is a game changer. We do this really well here at Mastermind Gym Solutions. We also, I didn't bring this into here, but there's a book called the 5 Love Languages. I can't remember who wrote it, right? It's designed to help you work together with your spouse, right? To have a lasting, intimate relationship by understanding their love languages. But once you understand how love languages work, you can also apply that to your employees. Christy, I hope you don't mind if I say this. But so Christy, one of Christy's love languages is words of affirmation, right? Christy needs to be told she's doing a good job. And I'm the same way, right? It's one of my love languages too. And so if my leader doesn't understand that that's important to me or doesn't care that that's important to me, and doesn't do that for me, I become demotivated, right? And Christy does as well, right? Now, luckily for me, I'm an executive level position, and although that is one of my love languages, I've never got it at work, and I don't need it at work. But I'm also the COO here, and I have thick skin. Christy, on the other hand, right, and she's on this call, and I think she would attest to this. If I don't use words of affirmation with her and tell her she's doing a good job, it dramatically affects her mental state because it's important to her. And as her leader, I need to understand that. And I need to be able to fulfill that for her along the way, as well as making sure that I understand which 2 of these 6 human needs is the most important to her. So there you have it.
You do a good job.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I could always do better. All right. So now that we've established some baselines, let's move into some more tactical stuff. Make mediocrity uncomfortable. Make mediocrity uncomfortable. Excellence is the standard. Period. Excellence is the standard. Make mediocrity uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is that people change when staying the same becomes more painful than growing. People change when staying the same becomes more painful than growing. And it is so true. And when we accept mediocrity and it becomes normal instead of uncomfortable, it brings the whole team down. I'll give you an example. If I have trainer A and trainer B, and trainer A is thriving for excellence, they are the role model employee, and trainer B is just mediocre, the idea is that trainer A would elevate trainer B. But without the right type of leadership to make sure that that happens, what will end up happening is that trainer A will see you accepting the mediocrity from trainer B, and they become less engaged. They begin to lower their standards because they're allowed to. We need to make mediocrity uncomfortable. And so, Jake Devney, how are you, sir? Are you out there?
Doing all right. Yep.
It's nice to meet you. Have you ever worked for an organization that does not make mediocrity uncomfortable?
I think there's lots of organizations out there that let standards slide. And walking into the gym today, I saw my GM was 3 minutes late. So gonna have a talk to him about that in a little bit here. But yeah, I think I can do a better job myself, just adhering to standards and enforcing them.
All right. I love it. So a little bit of self-reflection, right? But do you see that when we don't make mediocrity uncomfortable, how it affects the other team members, how the standards begin to slip?
Yeah, they see someone, get away with something, and it not being upheld, and then that person has no consequences. So then why even bother adhering it myself, is what the other team members think. So
You
it's
got
bad
it, right?
cancer.
I love it. Thank you so much for being willing to give a real-time example. And so one of the things that we do when we allow mediocrity is that we are protecting the feelings of one person at the cost of the standards. And what we repeat becomes belief. So if we repeat that we are excellent and we repeat that excellence is not optional, then that becomes the standard. If excellence is optional, then mediocrity becomes the culture and the standards. The message you reinforce daily shapes what your team holds to be true about your gym. Right? I love that statement there. And then what you repeat becomes belief. What you ignore becomes permission. Every overlooked shortcut signals that excellence is optional, and mediocrity becomes the culture. And guys, I know what I'm saying here seems like very like I don't know how to describe it. Maybe challenging to change from where you are to where you want to be, but it's all about taking those steps, right? It's all about choosing to lead with the standards, and you get the behavior that you tolerate and understanding that, and not making mediocrity the normal, but making excellence the normal. Oh, Jake, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, nope, sorry.
Okay. All right, so let's go into what standards of excellence look like here. Has anybody give me a thumbs up through the little emojis if anybody on this call has read Extreme Ownership by Jocko? Little thumbs up like this. Dan Williams raised his hand. He's read it, right? At the end of the day, what extreme ownership boils down to is the standards start with you. Everything starts with you. If the team avoids hard conversations, you have to ask yourself, do I avoid them? If the team cut corners, you have to ask yourself, do I cut corners? There's no such thing as a bad team. There's no such thing as bad team members. The only thing that there is owners that allow bad team members to continue to be bad team members and don't get them to model their own behavior, right? If performance is inconsistent, we got to look in the mirror first. If your team avoids difficult things, if they cut corners, do you do that, right? We can't demand excellence if we're not excellent. We can't demand discipline if we're undisciplined. And they're going to mirror your behavior. Now, I can tell you as a former multi-unit leader that this can dilute down the layers the bigger your organization gets, right? But it doesn't fully dilute, and it remains true that extreme ownership starts with us. There's 3 laws of standards. I've already kind of hit on some of these, right? You get what you tolerate, excellence must be defined, and systems beat personalities. These 3 things, if we do them really well, we run a club that's excellent. Everybody's meeting the standards. It just clicks. One of the things that you have to ask yourself, if a standard is violated and nothing happens, the standard has been lowered, right? We have to realize that that's true. Silence is agreement. Culture is not what you say, it's what you allow repeatedly. And so if I both Clint and sorry, I forgot your name, sir. Jake, we're both very vulnerable here by saying that, you know, they've got people that have been late. And so when we see somebody that's late and we say nothing, we're basically agreeing that it's okay to be late. And then if we say something, but then we allow it repeatedly, we're basically saying it's okay to be late. Excellence is not a vibe, it's a measurable. What a championship level sales appointment look like? What does elite onboarding look like? And so we need to be able to define, here's what excellence is, right? Excellence at our company means A, B, C, D, and E. It needs to be very clearly defined. This is what an excellent tour looks like. This is what an excellent employee looks like. This is what an excellent training session looks like. This is what an excellent sales process looks like. This is what excellent behavior looks like in prospecting and modeling and so on and so forth, right? Sales champions aren't hype driven, they're system driven. They know the structure, the script, the follow-up, the standards, right? Kind of like Dan said earlier, people will default back to the training that they got, right? And I think that's where the systems come into place. Andy just talked about this for those of you that are our customers in our masterclass yesterday, where when we have a sales system that is solid, we're able to plug people into it that don't have to be good salespeople when they start, because we're able to elevate them through the systems, right? So some of the areas that you want to really focus on defining what excellence looks like in is your sales process, your onboarding process, your coaching process, and your follow-up process. I kind of alluded to these in the prior slide, but what does championship level look like? What does elite look like in these categories? That Andy actually said something to me about 6 weeks ago now that is so true, and I never thought of it, right? Nothing is good or bad until you compare it to something else. Nothing is good or bad until you compare it to something else. And so what we want to do is we want to have something that says this is what excellence is, so then we can compare to the standard, right? And we want to have it for all four of these areas. After we've done everything that I've talked about today, then we start working on our 3 pillars of accountability. Standards without accountability will decay. Accountability is not pressure. It's clarity plus support plus reinforcement. Pillar 1 is clear and agreed upon expectations. I am so guilty of this in my career. And I know we've all done it, where I have a meeting with Dan, and Dan and I talk and we say, yep. I tell Dan, I need you to do A, B, C, D, and E. And throughout the conversation, Dan's just nodding his head. And then we walk away and I'm like, yeah, Dan gets it, because he shook his head the whole time. But Dan didn't get it because he didn't actually agree to do it. It didn't absorb with him. He didn't own the outcomes because I just went in and told him what to do. Right? Which at times is okay. But pillar 1 of true accountability is clear and agreed upon expectations. And so one of the ways you can do this is after a meeting is over, you save the last 5 minutes of the meeting and you say, all right, I want you to repeat to me and give me a summary of everything we just talked about. All right, so then we do that. Then when it's done, I need you to write me an email recapping this meeting we just had, and that you understand what done looks like and that you're in agreement that you are going to do it. You're not nodding your head and doing it because I told you to. You are agreeing that you're going to do the work and demonstrate the behavior that gets us there, right? Another big part of clear and agreed upon is it needs to be measurable. We want to have objective and trackable items as takeaways from our key meetings with our team. And then we need to revisit things weekly, which is going to come here in a minute. It's the 3rd pillar, which is follow-up, right? But pillar 1 is clear and agreed upon expectations, written, measurable, multiply, 2-way commitment on agreed upon. The second one, this is the biggest one, is the tools to succeed. So if I have a meeting with Jake and I tell Jake, hey, we need to get 1,000 leads this month. And Jake's like, sounds good. Yeah, I want to get 1,000 leads. I like 1,000 leads, right? Let's do it. And so he agreed with me. All right, Jake, I need you to repeat. And so we talk about some ways that we're going to get 1,000 leads. All right, Jake, now I need you to repeat to me what we just talked about. And Jake does it, right? He does a really nice job of saying, yep, this is what done looks like. I agree that it's important and that I'm going to do it. I know we have a plan on how to do it. And then and then he's going to send me an email recapping it. And I'm going to revisit it with him weekly. But if he doesn't have the tools to succeed, right? He has no idea. I tell him, hey, in order to get these 1,000 leads, we're going to get 250 from community events. I'm going to buy 250 digitally. You're going to get 250 from B2B, and you're going to get 250 by creating a corporate partnership with 5 different factories. And we're going to get 50 from each one of those factories. That's where we're going to get our 1,000 leads. And Jake's like, yep, sounds good. But then Jake doesn't know how to create a B2B relationship. Jake doesn't know how to create a corporate relationship. Jake doesn't know how to get reviews or referrals. Then I didn't do the second part, which is giving him the tools to succeed. I need to make sure that when I walk away from a meeting with somebody, that they are fully trained and have the supporting documents and tools to execute on the items that I just asked them to do. So scripts, playbook, training systems, checklists, whatever it is. This is a really important part of the 3 pillars, which makes the third part very simple, which is follow up. So part 1, clear and agreed upon expectations. Part 2, tools to succeed. Part 3, consistent follow up. When we do those 3 things at a level of excellence, we are able to move our business forward with clarity and very minimal disappointment because people own their outcomes. And this is really important and goes back to everything else I've been talking about today, which is starting with vision and direction, moving into standards of excellence, then using accountability correctly, and life becomes great, right? So in our follow-up, we want to be able to have scoreboards. We want to be able to do pipeline reviews. We want to be able to do sales debriefs, one-on-one coaching. Like a follow-up doesn't mean we completed pillar 1 and 2. I'll follow up with you next week. In between there, we need to be keeping score. We need to be reviewing the pipeline. We need to be doing sales debriefs, which is spot coaching, which means Dan just met with somebody, didn't close them. Right now, we're going to role play it, right? We're going to go through the post-appointment breakdowns that turn every call or every moment into a learning moment. We want to get through that. Then one-on-one coaching, which is personal development sessions that invest in each team member's growth, right? That's what true follow-up is. It's not just I have a meeting and then I schedule a meeting a week later. It's all the stuff that goes in between to make sure that things happen. Which leads us to what you inspect improves, what you tolerate becomes permanent. And so one of the things that I think we're all guilty of throughout our careers, I've been there, is that I don't do enough of that stuff between the meetings, right? I don't do my scoreboard checks, my pipeline reviews, my sales debriefs, my one-on-one coaching between meetings. I do now, but I haven't always done that. And man, does it make such a huge difference in leadership that lasts. All right, here's our last step, which is core values and culture, right? And so assuming that we've done everything else that we're talking about, this is like the binding, right? I don't know if you guys can see that. This is the binding that holds everything together, right? Binding like on your thing, on a notepad. It's our core values and culture by design. Culture's not accidental, right? We want to reward good behavior and we want to not tolerate poor behavior. We want to have behaviors corrected and we want to have our standards enforced. That's how we make culture not accidental. Core values are behavior filters, right? So the mistakes a lot of gyms make is they create core values such as, integrity, growth mindset, there's all kinds of different versions of a core value, but then they don't define what they mean. And they don't incorporate them in their weekly meeting rhythms, and they don't incorporate them in the bloodline that runs through the business, right? They just define them once. They don't talk about them again. Maybe they put them up on a wall, but they don't use them as the mechanism that guides their business. Here at Mastermind, one of the things we do, our core values are a part of our weekly meeting every single week. We have 9 core values. We review them on a 9-week cycle, and every week we don't just say our core value. We talk about what it means, what it looks like in action, and we ask our teammates to recognize other teammates that they have seen demonstrating that we live, eat, and breathe that core value. And when we do that, it makes the standards of excellence so much easier to uphold because we're all discussing it. We're all using the same language. We're all buying into the concepts, right? Our core values must live inside those meetings, recognition and rewards, coaching conversations, hiring decisions, performance reviews, right? If you don't speak your core values weekly, they won't shape the identity of your company and help you drive excellence. All right. How do we install all this? So first, you got to make sure you're casting your vision and your direction consistently, frequently, often. It needs to be a part of who your clubs are. Then we've got to make sure we have a great identity. Remember, identity is much easier to anticipate than behaviors. We know who we are, we know how we do things, and we want to make sure we have clarity on our team's roles and purposes. And we want to make sure that we understand our people's needs. And even if you want to weave in the love languages, but we want to identify with excellence. The next thing, we got to have standards. We've got to define what excellence looks like. We've got to manage people to do it, and we've got to not be willing to accept behaviors that fall below the standard. And most importantly, we can't fall below the standard. And I'm going to give you an example of me really effing this up recently. And so at my company, we have a dress code, right? You see me in it right now, right? Your outermost garment either needs to say Mastermind, or you need to have on business casual clothes. We only allow hats on Fridays. And so over the last couple months, right, I would wear a hat on a Tuesday occasionally. I wore hats on days other than Fridays. And guess what immediately started happening? Who can guess what immediately started happening? That's right, Dan. Next thing I know, my team members are wearing hats. They're out of uniform, right? And so last Wednesday on our group call, like not yesterday, but the week before, I had to own it. I had to say, listen, the standard here is that we're in uniform Monday through Friday. Here's what you're allowed to wear. You can only wear hats on Fridays, no sweatshirts, no this, no that. And I know that I have not been mirroring that standard, but it's going to stop for me, and I expect it to stop from you. And so it's a really great example of when I wasn't upholding a very simple standard, excellence began to slip, right? And so it starts with us. Expectations is the next thing that we do when we install this leadership system. We have written, agreed, revisited. We have clear and agreed upon expectations in everything that we do. We make sure our team has the tools. We do consistent follow-up. And when we put these 6 things together, we get leadership that lasts. One of the things that I have come up with is the difference between leading with intensity and then leading with leadership that lasts. And intense leaders rely on emotion. They push hard and burn out, and then we restart the cycle over and over and over. Lasting leaders cast vision, model the standards, install systems, coach consistently, and they protect the culture, right? These are really, really important things. I know this slide might seem a little bit redundant, but I'm in my recap now. And so ask yourselves, which one of these leaders am I? And do I see my team responding accordingly? All right, I'm about done here. Right? Leadership that lasts is not loud. It is disciplined, it is modeled, and it is reinforced. I've worked for loud leaders. I've been a loud leader. I've led through emotion and intensity, and what it leads to is disappointment. There's little sparks of greatness in there, but overall, it burns out. We've got to stay disciplined. We've got to model the behavior of excellence, and we've got to reinforce it and hold people to the standards. So here we go. Let's define your vision, set your standards, install the system, and lead with discipline. All right. Thank you guys all so much for attending today. I know that was a lot of information. As always, we are a great partner to Keep Booked. We love Keep Booked. They're a great partner to us. And so we offer complimentary strategy calls after every one of these webinars that I do. And so if you want to do a call with me to dig into this any further, Christy is on here. She can schedule you. Just drop your email or raise your hand, and she will reach out to you, and we'll get that done. I'm more than willing to give my time. This is not a come on this call and buy something from me. This is a if you need help, I will help you. I think, Dan Willems has been on many, many, many of these calls, and I would hope that he would be a testament to anytime he schedules a call with us, we come when we deliver. It's not sales pressure. It's about serving, and we're here to serve you. So if you're not our customer already and you want to get a strategy call with me, like I said, just push the little raise your hand button or drop your email in the chat box, and Christy will get you scheduled. Thank you guys all for your time today. And for those of you that didn't attend, hope you enjoy the note taker. For those of you that did, thank you so much for your time and attention today. I'll stay on here for a couple minutes for any questions.